What happens when dreams collide with reality? Agnes, a young woman full of hopes, will soon discover that promises of love can unravel in the blink of an eye. Married to Alberto, a man who seemed to be her safe harbor, she finds herself trapped in a dilemma that will lead her to question her choices and the true meaning of happiness. Agnes always dreamed of being a mother. Since she was little, she imagined sunny days spent playing with her children, laughing and having fun. However, by Alberto's side, that dream seemed distant. He, a man with other plans, did not want children. The couple's happiness began to be overshadowed by this fundamental difference. In a moment that should have been one of celebration, medical tests revealed that Alberto was infertile. This news brought to light the proposal from Geraldo, Alberto's father, who suggested artificial insemination as a solution to Agnes's dilemma. With renewed hope, Agnes accepted the proposal without knowing that behind the curtains of her marriage lay dark secrets. The truth about Alberto's vasectomy and his affair with another woman soon came to light, shattering the life Agnes knew. The marriage, which seemed like a fairy tale, transformed into a tragedy, and she found herself alone, having to cope with the pain of betrayal and the impending separation. After the divorce, Agnes found support in Geraldo, who became her refuge during the pregnancy. Their friendship grew, and Agnes, even in the midst of emotional turmoil, began to envision a new path. When she finally gave birth to twins, the joy of being a mother lit up her days. The bond that formed between her and Geraldo solidified, revealing a new perspective on love and family. However, a secret was about to change everything again. Upon discovering that the insemination donor was, in fact, Geraldo, Agnes felt a whirlwind of emotions. The maturity she had developed helped her accept this truth and, surprisingly, transformed it into a new beginning. Over time, love blossomed between them, leading them to marry and raise the children together, forming a united family. The story reaches its climax when Alberto, now living a new life with his mistress and a child, tries to reconnect with his father and seek Agnes's forgiveness. However, Agnes and Geraldo's new reality is unshakable. Geraldo makes it clear that his priority is the new family they have formed, and Alberto, lacking the moral ground to criticize, must accept the situation as it is. Throughout her journey, Agnes learns that true love can arise from the ashes of disillusionment and that even amid pain, it is possible to find a new purpose and happiness. Life has taught her that, no matter how challenging the path may be, each choice made can lead to an unexpected future filled with love. Agnes was at a moment in her life she never imagined she would experience. The walls of the apartment that once echoed with dreams and laughter now reverberated with agonizing silence. Looking out the window, she saw life following its course while she felt trapped in a web of disillusionments. The city lights shone bright, but her soul was shrouded in shadows. Alberto's betrayal had left her devastated, and even with the newly acquired freedom after the divorce, fears and insecurities haunted her. One day, while organizing some boxes stored in the basement, Agnes found a childhood photo album. The images of her mother holding her and the laughter shared with friends made her reflect on what truly mattered in her life. The memories were sweet, but the weight of betrayal seemed to overshadow any joy. Sitting on the cold floor, she began to cry, feeling that her dream of being a mother might be slipping away. It was hard to believe that something so beautiful could emerge from so much pain. In this moment of vulnerability, Geraldo appeared. He was always nearby, supporting her, offering a shoulder to cry on. Agnes knew that his presence was a foundation amid the chaos, but she hesitated to allow this support to become something deeper. After all, How could she open herself to love again after having her heart broken? Geraldo, noticing the sadness in her eyes, sat down beside her and, with a comforting calmness, began to talk about his own challenges. He too was struggling with the shadows of the past, especially the pressure he felt from his father, who always compared him to Alberto. This comparison left him insecure and made him question his ability to be a good father and partner. As the days passed, Agnes began to realize that the friendship between them was transforming into something more significant. However, insecurity still dominated her. What would happen if she let Geraldo get closer? What if she got hurt again? These thoughts haunted her as she tried to focus on her new life as a mother. The twins, while a source of joy, also served as a constant reminder of the fragility of happiness. The fear of failing as a mother kept her awake at night, making her question whether she truly had what it took to raise her children alone. Weeks went by, and Agnes's pregnancy brought not only happiness but also challenges. The changes in her body, sleepless nights, and constant worry about the baby's health began to test her emotionally and physically. The pressure to be perfect consumed her, and in a moment of weakness, she started to wonder if she could really handle it all. The idea of failing terrified her, especially now that, without Alberto, she didn't have the security of a partner by her side. The difficulties also affected her relationship with Geraldo. He was always present, but Agnes, in her internal struggle, began to pull away. She didn't want him to feel obligated to be the father Alberto wasn't. Geraldo, however, had his own motivations. He had grown up in a home where love was scarce and always dreamed of forming a united family. When he met Agnes, he saw in her not just a partner but a chance to build something true and lasting. Her pain touched his heart, and he was determined to help her overcome her fears. Their relationship began to be tested. Agnes, in an attempt to protect the children and herself, started to shut down. Geraldo, on his part, felt like he was making an effort to enter her world, but the barrier Agnes had erected made everything more difficult. Arguments began to arise, and Agnes's insecurity transformed into a cycle of distrust. What if he left her too? Was the question that always lingered in her mind. One day, after a heated discussion about the twins' upbringing, Agnes felt overwhelmed by guilt and fear. She isolated herself, deciding that the best thing would be to face everything alone, without anyone's help. That moment of weakness made her reflect on the lessons life had taught her so far. She realized that true strength did not lie in enduring everything alone but in accepting that she needed support and that she could trust Geraldo. Thus, Agnes's journey would lead her to a crucial point: the choice between surrendering to the love that was blossoming or allowing the wounds of the past to keep her trapped in a cycle of pain and distrust. The future of her family depended on this decision, and as life continued, Agnes found herself facing the greatest challenge of all, confronting her fears and opening her heart once more. Agnes felt increasingly overwhelmed. Her pregnancy was advancing, and with it, the challenges multiplied. Sleepless nights, persistent nausea, and constant worry about the twins' well-being left her exhausted. Every time she looked in the mirror, she saw not only the changes in her body but also a reflection of her fears. She wondered if she was capable of being the mother her children needed. The weight of that responsibility felt crushing, and Geraldo's support, which once seemed comforting, now made her feel even more vulnerable. The tension between them grew. Agnes tried to distance herself, but Geraldo was not willing to give up. He continued to visit the apartment, bringing small things to brighten the atmosphere, trying to be an emotional support. With every gesture, he showed that he cared, but Agnes felt like she was sinking into a sea of insecurities. His hopeful words sounded like promises she didn't know if she could fulfill. One night, while taking a warm bath, Agnes had a moment of clarity. She realized she was behaving as if she were in a battle when, in reality, she needed allies. However, the thought of opening her heart to Geraldo was frightening. What if he rejected her? What if, once again, vulnerability left her exposed to new wounds? Days passed, and a new twist emerged. One of the twins had a mild complication that required a visit to the pediatrician. Anxiety took hold of Agnes. The fear of losing her children paralyzed her. She remembered her childhood, when a simple cold would send her into a panic, and now, as a mother, the responsibility was infinitely greater. When she arrived at the office, her mind was a whirlwind of worries. The doctor's reassuring words failed to calm her heart. In this moment of fragility, Agnes received a message from Geraldo, asking how she was doing. Reading his words intensified the pain of her loneliness. She felt guilty for not allowing him to help, for refusing to accept support. An internal battle formed, the need to open up and the desire to protect herself. The following weeks tested her emotionally. Agnes, feeling guilty for not being able to handle everything on her own, began to isolate herself further. She didn't want Geraldo to see her weaknesses. In a moment of fragility, she decided to cancel a planned meeting. She couldn't face the possibility of disappointment again. Geraldo, on his part, was disappointed. He knew Agnes was going through a tough time, but he felt he was doing everything he could to help her. When he received the cancellation message, he felt powerless. The friendship that was evolving into love now seemed at risk. Thus, he decided it was time to be honest with Agnes. He needed to express his feelings. Inside the apartment, with the rain falling outside, Geraldo began to speak about his own fears. He shared the pressure he felt in being a good partner and a good father, and how the absence of a father figure affected his insecurities. He looked into her eyes with sincerity and said he didn't want her to face this alone. They were in this together. Geraldo's words touched Agnes, but insecurity overwhelmed her. She asked, "What if I fail? What if you get tired of me and leave too?" Her voice trembled. The truth was that she felt lost, and fear kept her trapped in an emotional trap. The tension in the room was palpable. They had reached a critical point where friendship could turn into something more, but there was also the risk of completely losing each other. Agnes felt tears streaming down her face. It was a moment of weakness but also revelation. She realized that by pulling away, she was only perpetuating the cycle of pain and distrust. Geraldo moved closer, holding her hand. He promised he wouldn't leave her or pull away, but he needed her to trust him. They would face this together. The sincerity in his words began to break down the barriers Agnes had built. She found herself at a difficult crossroads, to continue isolating herself in her fears or to take a step toward vulnerability and love. As the rain tapped on the windows, Agnes realized that the path to personal growth was not a solitary one. The decision to open her heart could be the first step toward the healing she so desperately sought. She knew the future was still uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, she felt a spark of hope. Agnes was immersed in an emotional storm, but what she felt seemed small compared to what was about to happen. As the rain fell, she sensed that Geraldo's words were beginning to resonate within her. The pain of feeling alone, the fear of not being enough, these feelings were raw and present. But just as she was about to fully process the emotions flooding her, the phone rang. The sound of the cell phone interrupted the intense moment. Agnes looked at the screen, and her heart raced. It was a call from the doctor who had seen her a few weeks earlier. A chill ran through her. With a nervous gesture, she answered while Geraldo watched her, concerned. What could be so urgent? The doctor's voice was calm, but the message that followed left her paralyzed. Agnes, we need to talk about the results of the tests we conducted. There are some issues we need to discuss. The words weighed like lead in her chest. The world around her faded for a moment, and all she could hear was her own racing heart. Geraldo, noticing the change in Agnes's expression, leaned closer. What is it? He asked, trying to gauge the seriousness of the situation. With a trembling voice, she explained that she needed to go back to the doctor's office, that something was wrong. Anxiety took hold of both of them. They knew the situation could have serious implications, but what worried Agnes most was the possibility that the twins might be at risk. In the minutes that followed, Agnes felt as if she were in a movie, where each scene unfolded slowly and reality seemed distant. The idea of losing her children, of failing as a mother, consumed her. It was her greatest fear, and now it felt like a concrete possibility. The sense of helplessness was overwhelming. Geraldo noticed her distress and, in an act of courage, decided he would accompany her. I'm going with you, he stated firmly. Agnes hesitated but saw in his eyes a support she couldn't refuse. His presence made her feel that perhaps she wasn't as alone as she thought. On the way to the doctor's office, the silence was heavy. Agnes was trapped in her thoughts while Geraldo searched for words that could comfort her. He knew that nothing he said could truly alleviate the pain she was feeling, but at the same time, he wanted her to know he was there. When they arrived at the office, the anxiety intensified. Agnes sat in the waiting room, and each second felt like an eternity. Her mind drifted to catastrophic scenarios. What if the news was bad? What if she couldn't be the mother she wanted to be? Insecurity wrapped around her like a dark cloud. Finally, the doctor called her in. The room was cold, and Agnes felt a shiver run down her spine. She and Geraldo entered, and the doctor, with a serious expression, began to explain the results. Although his words were cautious, the message was clear. There was something that needed to be monitored, but it wasn't what Agnes feared. It was a treatable condition, and the twins were fine. Still, the revelation shook Agnes in a way she hadn't expected. The fear that paralyzed her, the thought of being unable to protect those she loved most, made her reconsider everything she had thought up to that point. The internal battle she was fighting was not just against her insecurities, but also against the reality that the challenges of motherhood were not something she needed to face alone. As she left the office, she was filled with a mix of relief and new challenges. Geraldo's words echoed in her mind, "We're in this together." She realized that by closing herself off, she was not only isolating herself but also denying the opportunity to create a new form of love and support. From that moment on, Agnes decided she needed to change. Not just for herself, but for the twins she carried inside her. The weight of responsibility was still there, but now there was a glimmer of hope. She could be a mother, and she could count on Geraldo. Instead of pulling away, she allowed herself to open her heart, not only to Geraldo but to the life that lay ahead. The journey would not be easy, but for the first time, Agnes felt ready to face the challenges and accept that even in weakness, there was strength. With a newfound understanding, she smiled at Geraldo, who looked at her with concern and hope. Outside, the rain began to let up, and sunlight started to break through the clouds. It was a new beginning. In that moment, Agnes realized that vulnerability was not weakness, but a bridge to a deeper and more genuine love. She was ready for the next phase of her life, and she was not alone. Agnes left the doctor's office with a sense of relief, but at the same time, a new weight settled in her heart. The news that the twins were fine was a balm, but the revelation about her condition made her think about how motherhood could be more complex than she had imagined. Now, she was not just waiting for two lives, but also dealing with the responsibility of caring for her own health and well-being. As she walked toward the car, the rain had finally stopped, and the sun began to shine softly. The light seemed to symbolize a new phase, but Agnes knew that challenges still lay ahead. Looking at Geraldo's face, following her in silence, she realized that even with the happiness of the good news, there was a new reality to face. Inside the car, silence stretched for a few moments until Geraldo broke the tension. "Are you okay?" he asked, concerned. Agnes felt she needed to be honest. "I'm relieved, but I'm also scared. I don't know how to handle all of this." The vulnerability in her voice made Geraldo look at her with greater attention. "We're in this together, Agnes. We'll figure this out together." These words brought a comfort she didn't know she needed. As they drove home, Agnes began to reflect on the changes she needed to make in her life. She had to take care of herself, not only to be present for the twins but also to prevent fear from taking over. It was time to face her inner demons. When they arrived home, Agnes sat on the couch, her mind filled with thoughts. What would happen if she couldn't manage her condition? What would that mean for the twins? She took a deep breath, trying to calm the storm of uncertainties. She decided she needed to take one step at a time. The first thing was to seek information about her condition and how she could manage it. In the following days, Agnes immersed herself in research. She looked for books, articles, and online support groups. With each new piece of information, she felt a mix of hope and fear. The chances of complications existed, but there were also many stories of success and overcoming challenges. Reading became an escape, a way to prepare for what was to come. She started jotting everything down in a notebook, creating an action plan to take care of herself and the twins. Geraldo, for his part, was always by her side. He helped her organize the information and even cook healthy recipes she discovered during her research. Agnes began to realize that sharing responsibility was important not only for her health but also for their relationship. The vulnerability that once intimidated her was now transforming into a stronger bond between them. However, the path was not easy. Agnes had days when she felt completely overwhelmed. On one of those mornings, while trying to stick to her routine, she looked in the mirror and saw a woman fighting her insecurities. The dark circles and tired expression reminded her that stress was present. She sat down on the bathroom floor and began to cry, feeling that the pressure was becoming unbearable. Geraldo, who was in the kitchen, heard the sobs and quickly went to her. Seeing her like that, he pulled her into a hug. "It's okay to cry, Agnes. You're dealing with a lot. Let's talk about it?" In that moment of vulnerability, Agnes began to open her heart again. She spoke about her fears, her insecurities, and how she felt about motherhood. These conversations became more frequent, and Agnes began to realize that she didn't have to carry the weight alone. Each time she shared her concerns, she felt a sense of relief. Geraldo's support was a pillar amid the storm of emotions. She understood that true love was not just about being present during the good times, but also about facing challenges together. As time passed, a new routine began to form. Agnes incorporated light exercises into her daily life, along with meditation sessions that helped her maintain calm. She also started attending a local support group, where she met other mothers going through similar experiences. These interactions helped her see that she was not alone and that many women faced challenges in motherhood. Agnes's journey was just beginning, but the light that had emerged after the turning point was guiding her. She learned that vulnerability was an important part of her life and that by opening up, she could find strength in human connections. The difficulties she would still face would be real, but now she had a new perspective. With support and love, Agnes was determined to face motherhood with her head held high, ready to embrace the challenges and joys ahead. Agnes was in a moment of transformation. Each day brought new challenges, but with them also came opportunities for growth. The overwhelming feeling that had accompanied her since the diagnosis now mixed with a sense of determination. She began to understand that facing her fears was an essential part of the journey she was on. That morning, as she prepared for the support group, Agnes looked in the mirror and saw a different woman reflected back. There was a spark in her eyes that hadn't been there before. Insecurity still existed, but now it was accompanied by a new sense of purpose. She was starting to trust herself more and her ability to face whatever was to come. The support group became a sacred space for Agnes. The women she met there shared stories of struggle and triumph, and each account inspired her in ways she didn't expect. One of them, Clara, spoke about how she had to learn to accept help. Clara had gone through similar experiences, and by letting go of her pride, she found not only support but also a new friendship. Clara's words resonated deeply with Agnes. She realized she didn't have to carry the weight alone. There was strength in allowing herself to be vulnerable and accepting help from others. The connection with the other mothers made her reflect on her own journey. Agnes began to see that motherhood was not just a series of challenges but also a path of continuous learning. Each difficulty she faced was an opportunity to reconnect with her essence. She started applying the lessons she learned in the group to her daily life. The meditation she practiced helped her find calm, and the light exercises made her feel stronger. As the weeks went by, Agnes discovered that the richness of life was not in material things but in the experiences and relationships built along the way. The love she felt for her twins grew each day, and she realized that this new perspective on motherhood was a much deeper form of success than simply having everything under control. But not everything was easy. There were days when the shadow of insecurity returned, and Agnes felt lost. In those moments, she sought Geraldo. He had become her safe harbor, always willing to remind her that she was capable. He had become not only a partner but a true friend in her journey. Together, they faced the ups and downs, and their friendship flourished amid the challenges. Agnes learned to value this connection, understanding that love was a construction that required care and attention. One night, while discussing plans for the future, Agnes shared her insecurities about motherhood. "What if I'm not a good mother?" she asked, her eyes glistening. Geraldo looked at her warmly and replied, "You're already being a good mother, Agnes. The simple fact that you worry about it shows how much you love our children. No one is perfect, but together we can learn and grow." These words echoed within her. Agnes realized that every mistake or insecurity was part of the journey. She didn't need to be perfect, she needed to be authentic. This acceptance brought a new relief and a profound understanding of life. She was willing to learn from difficulties, to rise after each fall, and to stand up with more strength. Over time, Agnes began to share her experiences with the mothers in the group, becoming a source of support. She realized that her story could help other women face their own challenges. This role as a mentor made her feel fulfilled, and with each story she shared, she grew stronger. Agnes was on a path of overcoming and growth. She had found a new understanding of herself and what it meant to be a mother. The journey was still far from over, but now she didn't only see challenges. She also saw lessons, friendships, and the emotional richness that motherhood brought. With each passing day, Agnes became a stronger, more confident woman, ready to embrace the life that lay ahead. Agnes was about to face her biggest challenge, a moment that would test everything she had learned during her journey. That morning, as she prepared for her twins' birthday, a mix of joy and anxiety enveloped her. The event was something she looked forward to with excitement, but it also brought to the surface the pressure to be the perfect mother, the impeccable host. The weight of the high standards she had set for herself began to transform into a whirlwind of insecurities. As she decorated the house with colorful balloons and prepared the snacks, her mind wandered. What if something went wrong? What if the kids didn't have fun? What if her friends from the support group didn't show up? These thoughts haunted her, and in an instant, all the confidence she had built seemed to crumble. She felt like an imposter, a woman who had yet to find her place in motherhood. At the height of her preparations, Agnes received a message from Clara, her friend from the group. "I'm excited for the party. Remember, what matters is the happiness of the little ones, not perfection." These words touched her deeply, but the anxiety still lingered. She began to question whether she could handle the party. When the guests arrived, the room was filled with laughter and cheerful voices. Agnes smiled, but the feeling of being adrift still accompanied her. She tried to connect with others, but as time passed, the pressure mounted. A series of small mishaps, a cake that crumbled, a child crying over a toy, turned her insecurity into despair. Agnes found herself at a breaking point. In the most tense moment of the party, when the twins began to fight with each other, Agnes felt everything spiraling out of control. A wave of frustration and guilt washed over her. She stepped away from the festivity and went to the backyard, where she let the tears flow. The feeling of failure was overwhelming. "How could I let this happen?" she thought. "I'm such a bad mother." But amidst her crying, Agnes realized something important. She remembered everything she had learned in the support group meetings. Vulnerability, accepting help, recognizing that motherhood was not about being perfect but about being present. With that reflection, something within her began to change. She didn't need to have all the answers or control every little detail. The love and connection she had with her children were what truly mattered. Taking a deep breath, Agnes decided to return to the party. As she entered the room, she saw her children still in the midst of their fight. Instead of trying to fix everything herself, she approached them and, with a smile, said, "Hi, my loves. What's happening here?" Rather than being the mother who corrects everything, she became the mother who listens. She knelt down and allowed the children to express their feelings. What began as confusion quickly turned into laughter when Agnes started telling a story about a dragon who loved to share its treasures. The tension dissolved, and joy filled the room once again. The party continued with laughter and play. Agnes realized that by letting go of the need to be perfect and opening herself to the moment, she was creating truly valuable memories. The guests had fun, and more importantly, her twins were happy. The joy she felt upon seeing her children smile was more rewarding than any decoration or perfect treat. At the end of the party, while helping to clean up the mess, Agnes felt a wave of gratitude. She had overcome her biggest challenge, the internal struggle against her insecurities. The journey had been difficult, but she had learned to love the imperfections of life and accept that success lay not in how things were done but in how she felt while doing them. Agnes remembered Geraldo's words, "You are already being a good mother." Now, she could truly believe it. Instead of feeling alone on her journey, she realized she had a support group, friends, and above all, a family that loved her. From that day on, she committed to living each moment with authenticity, knowing that true wealth lay in being true to herself and her values. And so, with a new understanding of motherhood and life, Agnes felt stronger, more confident, and ready to embrace whatever was to come. She knew the journey would continue, but now, she was prepared to face it with an open heart. After the party, Agnes's house was full of laughter and memories, but also a light mess left by the little guests. Agnes, with a smile on her face, began to pick up the toys scattered across the floor while her children enthusiastically helped. What once seemed like a burden was now a moment of shared joy. She watched Lucas and Sophia, her twins, laughing and playing together, and felt warmth in her heart. The tension that had overwhelmed her hours earlier had dissipated, giving way to a deep sense of pride. As she tidied up, Agnes remembered how allowing herself to be vulnerable had created a safe space for her children to express their emotions. The fight that had occurred during the party was not a sign of failure but an opportunity for learning. She smiled at the thought of how the story of the dragon sharing its treasures not only entertained the twins but also taught them about empathy and sharing. "Look, Mom, we found the dragon," Lucas said, holding up one of the toys that had been forgotten in the midst of the chaos. Agnes laughed and knelt down to be at his level. "Yes, he must be very happy you found him. What do you think he will do now?" The conversation flowed naturally, and Agnes realized how these simple moments were precious. Later, as she put the twins to bed, Agnes reflected on the challenges she had faced. She remembered Clara's words, which encouraged her to focus on the happiness of the children, not on perfection. "I really worried too much, didn't I?" she thought. "What matters is that we are together and happy." Looking into her children's sleepy eyes, Agnes felt a profound love fill her. She whispered to them that they would always be safe and loved, no matter what happened. In the following days, Agnes began to notice changes in herself. She became more open to asking for help and embracing imperfection. Instead of overwhelming herself with expectations, she started sharing her concerns with other mothers in the support group. The meetings became a space where she could express her insecurities, and the solidarity she found there was comforting. Each time a mother shared her own story of struggles, Agnes felt that she was not alone on her journey. In one of those meetings, Clara complimented her. "You seem lighter, Agnes. It's amazing to see how you are allowing yourself to be who you really are." These words touched Agnes deeply. She was learning to embrace her imperfections and to value herself for being a present mother. The pressure that once consumed her was transforming into a sincere commitment to her children and to herself. One evening, while preparing dinner, Agnes decided it was time to make an even bigger change. She began planning family activities that focused more on fun than on perfection. Game nights, art afternoons, and outdoor excursions became new traditions. Each laugh, each playtime, was a reminder that happiness was in the little things. Once, while they were playing a board game, Lucas turned to her and said, "Mom, I really like it when you are with us. You are the best." Agnes felt her heart swell with love. Those simple words were the best gift she could receive. She realized that the connection she had with her children was what truly mattered. As time passed, Agnes became not just a more confident mother, but also a more present friend to those around her. She started organizing gatherings with the mothers in her group, creating a space where everyone could share experiences and learn from one another. The strength of the community she had found helped her see that motherhood was a collective journey where mutual support made everything lighter. Thus, Agnes learned to live each day with more authenticity. She knew challenges would still come, but now she was prepared to face them with an open heart. Life didn't need to be perfect. What mattered was that it was filled with love, laughter, and shared moments. Above all, Agnes had found her place in motherhood, a place where vulnerability and strength coexisted harmoniously. Looking back, Agnes realized how much she had changed on her journey as a mother. Game nights and art afternoons weren't just distractions. They were moments of bonding that strengthened her connection with Lucas and Sophia. She understood that motherhood wasn't an easy path, but she now recognized that challenges were merely disguised opportunities for growth. The transformation that occurred within her wasn't limited to her relationship with her children. Through the mutual support she found among other mothers, Agnes also became a more present and confident friend. Together, they learned to laugh at small failures and celebrate victories, no matter how small they might seem. Each conversation, each venting session, was a step towards a new understanding. True strength comes from vulnerability and the love given and received. However, deep down in her heart, Agnes felt a weight. To become the mother she had always dreamed of being, she had set aside parts of herself. The sleepless nights and the pressure to balance her own needs with those of her children led her to a point of exhaustion. The victory of being a more present and connected mother cost her moments of self-care and personal fulfillment. In her quest for a happy and harmonious home, she sacrificed time that she could have dedicated to herself, her career, and even her friendships outside of motherhood. One night, while organizing yet another gathering with the mothers group, Agnes found herself reflecting on this dilemma. The joy of being with her children was undeniable, but the feeling of having lost herself in the process lingered. She realized that in order to continue being the mother she wanted to be, she also needed to take care of herself. This realization left her emotional, as it meant that the road ahead would require a new balance, a fresh start. Agnes's life had become a delicate dance between her love for her children and her need to care for herself. With that, she began to seek spaces for her own voice, her own passions, and what made her happy. The success she desired wasn't just to be an ideal mother, but to be a complete woman, fulfilled in her various facets. As she wrapped up another family night, with the children already asleep and the house in silence, Agnes smiled as she realized how far she had come. However, the cost of that transformation weighed on her heart. She knew that true success was complex and would involve new battles and tough choices. But at the same time, she felt grateful for the lessons learned and the wisdom gained along the way. For all those following her journey, Agnes had a powerful message. It is essential to remember that taking care of oneself is not a selfish act, but a fundamental step to being the best version of oneself, both for oneself and for those one loves. Love must be nurtured in every possible way, and that includes self-care. Now, at the end of her story, Agnes invites everyone to reflect on their own journeys. What sacrifices are you making in the name of love? How can you find a balance between caring for others and caring for yourself? Share your experiences and reflections in the comments. By doing so, you not only help create a stronger community, but you also inspire us to continue bringing stories that resonate with all of us. Like and subscribe to the channel, because your voice is important, and together we can learn and grow. Don't wait any longer. The transformation begins now.